welcome to the Where to Hunt podcast, the show that connects public land hunting enthusiasts. Today is September 27th, and this is episode 1, our first episode, so I hope you're excited as we are. Probably not, to be honest, but that's okay. What we're going to be doing today is, first and foremost, we're going to have a special guest on the show. We're going to really give your public land hunting views a shot of adrenaline, and you'll catch my drift with that later. After the interview, we're going to go ahead and talk about scent control, and we're going to share a story that we had shared with us about scent control and whether or not it's a farce or if it should be taken seriously. So we're just going to jump right into the show here. And honestly, I before we do that, I do want to say thank you to the people that are following us, the people that are promoting and showcasing the decals on their cars, their trucks. And honestly, I really appreciate the participation that's been provided by the fans, people sharing photos, stories, connecting. That's what this is all about. Hunting public land can be a difficult task, especially if you're new to hunting. It's really hard to start out. And if you're not, again, we just want to connect people and share stories, have a good time, and be passionate about hunting. So with that, we're going to get on with our interview for today, which was with Jared Scheffler of Whitetail Adrenaline. Had a great time talking with him. He's got a ton of great stories, good advice, and honestly, this should get you pumped up about hunting public land. If you are not, or if you've lost your interest, this will do the trick. I think these guys do a great job with their shows. I'm a huge fan personally, and I know a lot of people are. So we're going to bring him on the show here. All right, welcome to the show. We have a special guest today. We have Jared Scheffler from Whitetail Adrenaline. Thanks for being on the show today, Jared. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So you just got back. We were talking a little bit before we started the show today, and you just got back into town. Where were you at?
I was actually out in North Dakota, and it went really well finally. North Dakota's been a little bit of a struggle over the past few years since they've had a lot of winter kill here, 2010, 2011 winter, and then blue tongue and EHD. So the last couple of seasons in North Dakota has really taken a toll on us, and we managed to find a couple of little isolated pockets that are still pretty good out there. And it was it's been a great year in North Dakota, I guess. So our season has kicked off a lot better than last year. And great things to come. I got a lot of cool stuff planned for this fall that I'm not going to give too much away on, but I think we're
too much.
yeah, no, that's fine. This fall, I guess I'm looking forward to more than any fall I think I've ever hunted. It's off to a great start. And I just got back from North Dakota, and last year, people that have been watching our videos, they kind of know I took up the longbow last year, and I missed four big bucks with it. And maybe I should have just started with a doe.
But then you learned from those experiences. I'm assuming, obviously, you learned by mistakes. You made with 4 mistakes. I'd say you learned quite a bit.
Well, I hope I learned quite a bit from but sometimes I found myself, even on this last trip, this one that I shot an hour before I got him, there was a big one that I was chasing. And here again, I had to revisit what I've already learned in the past through making this mistake. And it's a long story, but I'll just kind of shrink it up. I was inside of 40, 50 yards from this big buck, and he had been laying down when he got on his feet, and I kind of lost visual a little bit, and I should have just, you never want to do that when you're playing a cat and mouse game, is lose visual if you can help it. And I kind of stayed low and was waiting for him to get in this little opening, and somehow I missed what, it's so easy to, but here again, not to get too sidetracked, but
no, you're fine.
I learned that years ago, that you don't lose visual on them if there's any way you can help it once you got them spotted. And
that's hard. That's easier said than done too.
Yeah. And here I am making the same mistakes that I learned years ago. So sometimes you learn new stuff, and then sometimes just simply, learn what you already knew, but you forgot. Like you got so used to, whatever it was. It kind of slipped your mind because maybe it didn't happen in a while, and you forgot how important something like that was. But at the end of the day, it still worked out pretty good. And I mean, I guess I was pretty happy with the outcome of the entire North Dakota season this year.
How far of a drive is that for you out there?
It's really not that bad for me. I can get right to the North Dakota in Fargo, which is the start of North Dakota for me. I can get there in about 4 to 5 hours. But just to give an idea of perspective, we had to put on a lot of miles, just driving around and throughout different regions of the state to find some pretty good hunting. And I just looked last night, and I'm 3,000 miles over on the oil change that I did right before the first trip. So I put on 6,000 miles since the first of the month, and almost all of those are, either driving to North Dakota and back, but it's only 300 miles to North Dakota for me. So most of those miles I put on, in the state, just trying to, and not just with North Dakota, but with any state in general. You got a lot of public land to hunt, and that's what we hunt is just public land. Well, one of the reasons that we can film the amount of footage we film this season is because we constantly keep moving until we find those really good pieces, and keep in mind, when people watch our 2.5 or 3 hour long video, they're seeing the best of our entire season. So there is a lot of days, we go out, or a lot of nights or mornings we go out and try new pieces or whatever, and it doesn't produce much. So it might look like we're on deer all the time, but the reality of it is, if I put that footage in there though of us going out and not seeing much, too much of that, which I have sometimes, but not, if I put too much in there, then people are going to be like, well, what the heck did I pay $15 for this for? I want to see something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so
you can't have everything just be downtime, but I like that you do add a sense of realism to it, and you showcase a little bit of the downtime and kind of like, okay, there's a squirrel, and that's realistic. Every hunter's not going to just be on deer. It's not magic,
Right.
It's hard work. A lot of driving, apparently, right?
Well, like in North Dakota, a lot of times I'm going off of visuals in that state. I'm just, if I'm getting to a new area, I might, rather than hunt that night or even in the morning, I might just drive around in the vehicle and just try and get an idea of if this area is even holding, some good deer, and because they're in North Dakota, a lot of times they are visible, but then you get into a state like Wisconsin where there's a lot more woods and stuff. Well, now I might drive around, like let's say I was to go hunting tonight, I might drive around 4 or 5 pieces I've never been to before.
Sure. Right
before I go out hunting, and then I might go off a feel like, okay, of what we drove around, I like this piece the best. Let's go in there tonight. You're going off a feel a little bit more, and I think, you can read, 1,000 books on hunting, and you can watch, video after video on hunting, but there's also a side of it that, the more you get out there and just do it, the more you're going to gain a, accurate, what I call an accurate sense of feel of what to do in a situation.
That's actually one of the kind of questions I had for you too, is how much time, and not specifically, obviously, if you were to estimate it, how much of your time is consumed by just researching public land spots to go in and out of state, in terms of being in Wisconsin or other, like you said, North Dakota or, Kansas, I think I've seen you guys hunt. So
okay.
How do you compile all that? You got to have a lot of confidence before you just step onto some property, right?
Here's, I'm going to try and fast forward through a little bit here. But,
sure.
To answer your question, Wisconsin I tackle a little bit different than, because I live here, so I tackle it a little bit different, but not that different from the out-of-states. I'll talk about the out-of-state stuff to start with. Years ago, I'm going to give you an example here. Years ago, I had it in my head that I had to like go to this state and check it out and pre-scout it and all of that before I ever hunted it. And you're going to laugh at this. I actually I made 3 trips to South Dakota to try and get a beat on, where I wanted to hunt or whatever. But I've never hunted South Dakota yet. Still to this day, even though it's a good state, I just never got there yet. I'm not afraid to go there, but that's how I used to think. Now, if I want to hunt a state, the best time to actually go out there and scout is when you're hunting, because that's when it's all happening. I've had people say, well, the best time to scout is in the spring or the winter, and I used to do all that, but I don't pre-scout at all anymore. Everything I do is all on the fly. But it's important here. How I make up the difference is, hunting on the ground. I can hunt, aggressively, cover a lot more ground, get in and out of pieces a lot quicker. I'm not, let's say I drive to North Dakota and let's say I go into a piece, I'm going in on the ground, so I can get in there and in a half hour I can be like, doesn't look like much, and get in and, be like, get all that gear in there, and then you feel like, okay, we went through all this work to get this in here, let's just set up and wait, and you might spend in the past, I might spend a whole night sitting there on a piece that maybe wasn't worth my time, and now I'm in and out, like, right now, if I don't feel it or I'm not seeing the sign or whatever it is, I can get in and out really quick, get to the next piece, so I can basically find that top public land a lot quicker now with that style. And, when I go to these other states, I also used to use, Google Earth and everything. And it's kind of funny because I still kind of do.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a good resource. I mean, obviously, if you're out there and you got the technology, by all means.
Right. I still kind of do, but at the end of the day, I've had this discussion. I got a really good friend who is a very good public land hunter. Now he still is a tree stand hunter, but he gets really good results doing it. He's got his own little style and it works really good for him. So I'm not saying how I do it is the only way. But I had this discussion with him recently. I was like, is it just me, or every time I look at stuff on Google Earth and it looks really good and I get there, I said, I find myself completely scrapping the entire plan and I stumble across something that's way better that doesn't even look like much on Google Earth. And he's like, no, almost every time that happens to me. He's like, I get all jacked up with these ideas like, okay, they're going to move through right here or whatever. And you get there and, it's either the deer aren't there or every other hunter has already researched it on Google Earth and it looks so prime that, So to be honest with you, some of the best stuff that I've found, actually all the best stuff pretty much that I've found is just out there in the car with a public land map in my hand. Almost all the other states produce a actual, yearly public land map that you can get for free. So it's really easy to get access to, all the walk-in properties and the state-owned properties and all that. Like when I go to North Dakota, I can just get one of those books. They're like 80 pages thick and they've got all the public lands on there. And so I'll just start, I'll just start in an area and I'll just keep moving until I find it. Whereas in the past I might try and like zone in on one or two spots, through Google Earth. And then I might try and hunker down. And in fact, in 2008, 5 years ago, Jim and I made that very mistake. Is we zoned in on mainly one particular spot in North Dakota, and we were so sure for how many months, 6 months or whatever, we had it in our head that this spot was going to be dynamite, and we had that so set in our mind that we ended up spending our entire hunt there trying to force that piece to work. And that was really a learning curve, a piece that I really learned a lot from that, because it taught me don't ever lock down to a spot completely unless it's actually like hot right then and there. Like I've had spots that are good one year and ice cold the next. I've had spots that are ice, awesome, best probably morning I've ever had, and the next day is cold as ice, and I'll pull out in an instant, to get to the next spot. And like, obviously the deer aren't there. I treat each day as its own, and that's why I keep moving is, I try and forget about what happened yesterday to a certain degree. Like, okay, maybe I learned kind of how these deer filtered through this piece that I was in yesterday, and maybe it was really good. So I might take that information of how the deer maybe moved through the piece, but whether they're there or not, or whether the piece is really good from one day to the next, I treat each day as its own. So if I get in there the next day and it's cold, I'm pulling out right now.
You're not thinking back, man, yesterday was hot, I got to stay here, or, last day was excellent, exactly. I can't move from the spot, you're done, you're out, you're getting...
Right, well, and I'm not always out forever. Sometimes I'm out forever. Sometimes I'm out for 2-3 days, and I might jump back in. For instance, this good prime example, this trip to North Dakota where I got this one, the trip before that, the last day is when I found this little pocket with all these bucks. I mean, I saw like 10 bucks out there, 4 really good, solid shooters. And then it was the last day when I found it, and I just... it didn't happen. So that's why I wanted to get back to North Dakota so bad, is because I was like, man, if I can just get back to that spot, there's just too many bucks running around there. It's, I'm going to get one. I just got to get back there. So 5 days or whatever goes by, I get back there. First morning, ice cold, and I can see 1,000 acres of land. I mean, it's very wide open area. I mean, it's not like there's a whole bunch of woods that's like, okay, they could be right over here. I can see a lot of acreage, and I cannot find even a buck. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So later that night, an afternoon, because sometimes, a lot of times, deer will get up, several hours before dark, just for a few minutes, get up, maybe browse on the beans that they're laying next to, because a lot of these deer in North Dakota, especially this year, I found, they really like them cattails. I really keyed in a lot on just cattail flues, and stuff like that. So you see these deer get up on their feet midday sometimes. So, I even sat out there in the midday trying to, spot one, get a visual, nothing. The whole entire first day, didn't see a buck. I'm like, how could it go this cold? It's early season, Well, anyways, you don't always know the how of why or how did this go cold, but, I was like, all right, I'll give it tomorrow morning and see how that goes. Next morning, ice cold. So, from experience, I'm like, well, I'm out of here. I'm not going to sit here day after day, even though it was good 5-6 days ago or whatever it was. I'm not going to spend all my time hunting this piece anymore, because obviously the deer have kind of shifted or something's happened. So I pulled completely out. I put on over 300 miles on day 2.
Holy cow.
Going, checking out a lot of new stuff, and then I ended up kind of getting back to an area that I drove through 2 years ago, and there was just a lot of hunters at that time, and right at last light, I saw this big buck out in the middle of this. It was like the only square for miles with no trees in it and stuff, and he was out in the middle of, 480 acres of beans, and then there's 160 acres in the same square of cut wheat, so there wasn't any trees, not a bush, but that's where he was, and I was like, okay, I'll get there first sun up, I'll spot him, and then get a beat on him and go after him. I get there, nothing, I'm like, okay, I drive up the road a little ways, spot another big one. So I go after him, but kind of lost him in the tall grass and cattails, whatever. I, sit there kind of that night too, waiting for that big one to come out of the grass and cattails, nothing. So like 20 minutes before dark, I pulled out of there, drove back to that square where that big one had been the night before, out in the middle of there, just to see if he was there. That's another thing is like if I'm in a spot and I feel like it's, going dead or it's just dead right now, if I've got 20 minutes of light left, I'll pull out right now, get in the car, drive around a bunch of other stuff as much as I can before dark to get a beat on where to go tomorrow, where to start tomorrow,
That's really smart that you do that. I think I'm the opposite. I can't get myself to move. I'm like, what if I move and there's that deer? Yeah, it'll be that one time, I can't get myself to get out of that thought process.
It is hard because you're like the what ifs start like, what if I'm pulling out too early? And I'm sure there's been times where I've done that, but from my experience, well over 9 times out of 10, it ends up staying dead the entire night, and then I'm like, gosh, I should have pulled out and checked that out.
Then it should have.
Right. So, I drove back over to that other square, and right at last light, he pops his head, up from he's half a mile away, but I mean, he's a 140, 150-inch deer, which is good for North Dakota. Really saw a buck. I'm like, God, I was like, how did he get out there in the morning without me seeing him? Because, about the only, product besides the weapon that I really depend a lot on is binoculars, and I use them constantly. And I mean, I'm like, how did this buck get in there and get bedded without me? He had to do it before the sun even cracked, So the next day I get out there, and I'm glassing it, cannot find him anywhere. And I'm like, you know what? He's done it 2 nights in a row. I'm just going to go out in the middle of this bean field, right? At that point, then I pulled it up on Google Earth, and, it had never looked like anything worth your time before, but now I knew there's a big one out there. So I could kind of see this little low spot out there, right about where I saw him. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. He's probably just laying right out there. All these squares of trees around here are getting hit by hunters and stuff. And so he's just holing up out here in the middle of this field, and it's working out great for him. So, I get in there at like 9 a.m. I crawl, get in the middle, and I get right by this low spot. I sit there for, out there it's dark a little after 8, so I sit there for 11 hours and he never shows. He never shows. I had some does and fawns that were, right there in that low spot. But he never shows. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And that was like my last day to hunt in North Dakota. But I was so beat from being out in the sun that I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow and go from there. So I woke up the next morning, I got there right at first light, glassed again, nothing. I was like, all right, I'm pulling out of here. I pulled out, I went back to the original area that was dead the first day and the second morning. And that's where I ended up getting on this really big one and then shooting that one that I did, which is still a nice buck, like an hour later. They were back in there, And I think what had happened is, maybe they shredded their velvet. Some of them were shredding their velvet, and when they do that, it seems like their patterns kind of go wacko for a few days sometimes. And so maybe that was part of it. And then also there was a cold front when I first got there. And so that cold front might have switched them from beans to, like, the corn is a little bit farther along out there than Wisconsin. So the deer, you could definitely tell the deer had been eating corn. And so maybe that cold front kind of got them on the corn and in the cornfields. So, but, since then it had warmed back up. So now I think maybe they were back on the beans again a little bit. But, key point here is, this kind of got a little long-winded. First, I got there, it was dead cold. So I pulled out, but, 2 days later, I came back to that area and it was hot. Now the good thing is, in the meantime, I didn't get one in that other area that I checked out, but I at least kind of got a little bit more knowledge about that area so I can pop into it maybe in the future, and know a little bit more about it. You know what I mean?
About how they're traveling. And well, I think as it relates to public land, I guess that one of the things I would consider really awesome about that is you have the ability to get up and move around. Obviously, I don't know what the land was like that you were hunting, if it's bordering any private or anything like that, but you can be completely mobile. You don't have to be hunkered down in your one parcel and that's it. You're waiting for them to come onto your spot. No, you can go to them. If you, like you said, you're going to pull out, you're going to move out somewhere else because the guy ain't coming back. You know, when you pull up your Google Earth and you can go, well, maybe you went over here. And if it's public, you just go over there.
Yeah, you know, I mean, to me, public land hunting is a no-brainer for my style of hunting, where, you know, I love being on the ground. I love getting aggressive with them because I've got never-ending. I'll never be able to hunt all the places, all the public land that I want to get to in my life. I'll probably never be able to get to it all because there's too much of it. You know what I mean?
That's really something, though, too. I mean, that's really something. How do you find land in other states in terms of like accessibility? Is it how would you compare Wisconsin against some of the other states that you have hunted, and what are those other states too?
To be honest with you, the other states are actually easier because they pretty much, like I said, all the other states pretty much that I hunt. I mean, they produce a public land map, like I was saying, you know, and they also got them right online, and they're very. Not only are they very accurate, but you know, they've got, you know, those other states I hunt, just like North Dakota, they got what's called walk-in hunting access, that's Kansas. Getting them confused. In North Dakota, it's called plots, but, you know, where the state will lease land from, you know, the farmers and whatnot, and, you know, it's open for hunting. Well, you know, they've got just signs up that are good, and, you know, I've come across pieces where I think the locals have kind of ripped the signs down, and so then you got to glass the back. You got to glass like way back, and you'll see like a post way in the back
that's unfortunate that people do that, but
right. But you know, to be honest with you, I had a piece years ago that in North Dakota that was just prime, but the signs somebody had knocked them down right by the road, but you know, in the back they were still there, and on the public land map it was still listed as public. So. You know, but right by the road, somebody had ripped them down, and it kind of almost, I think, kept that piece pretty good. But you know,
do you thank the guy or do you shun him?
right, yeah. But you know, I mean, most of the time everything's labeled really good as far as signs go in those states. Most of the time,
in the other states you're watching out, I've seen on your shows that you guys are the DVDs you got. Mule deer coming by, you gotta watch. You really gotta know your target at that point. You don't want to tag the wrong animal. I mean, that's really different from this state. That's for sure.
Right. Now, you know, and I mean, it's not too big of a. I mean, I would hope, you know, like you'd tell the difference. But you know, to be honest with you, like last year, you get in the wide open sun like that. We had one buck that came through and. We knew that there was a big whitetail in there, which is why we kind of went in this little creek bottom and where there was some trees, and this mule deer buck came through, and you got the shadows and the sun, and you know, if you didn't have binoculars or really good eyesight, you could mistake it, you know, if everything happened just right, because you know you just saw this big whitetail go in there, and you get in there,
you're all excited,
you know, Yeah. I mean, it could happen. So yeah, you got to be, a little bit careful. But I mean, I always look at it like this: if it's an truly honest mistake, you know, okay, it's not that big of a deal. You know, like it might be as far as the ticket goes or law, like you shot the wrong species, but. You know, if it was a truly honest mistake, it was an honest mistake. It's not the end of the world.
Absolutely, it's not like you're up there poaching. You obviously, want to stay hunting. It's not like you're trying to. Yeah.
Right. Now, intentionally going out there and shooting a mule deer and throwing a whitetail tag on it, well, you know, then, you know, you're just asking for problems and trouble, man. But, so, anyways.
And with this, I mean, as far as the show goes that you guys have, you've always recorded on public land, right? There, as far as I'm aware, I haven't noticed or seen any advertisements on the casings or any talk about ever hunted private land or anything like that, right?
The first video, the preliminary run in 2007, that was a partial. There was some public and some by permission, and like on the back of the cover, or if you go like on our website, it'll say, you know, public land and by permission lands. Okay. And then from that season, you know, our next video is Scratching the Surface. That's when we started the all public land stuff. So we've got 5 all public land titles out. You know, and I've never went back and actually watched any of them since I've edited them, because you spend so much time editing them. But I've had quite a few people. I'm going to one day. But I've had quite a few people that are like, you know, you can really, you know, see different progression throughout, like how our style has changed so much since that first year doing all public 5 years ago in 2008. They're like, you can really see your style developing and changing and progressing, and you know, I mean, I do know
you're
that
so close to it that you're not really like, okay, sure, you know.
Right. Sometimes it's not that easy to see it with a fresh, you know, you don't have a fresh set of eyes anymore, you know, because you kind of, you know, I'm too close to it. So,
yeah, it's like getting a puppy, and you're like, I don't know, the thing didn't get that big. Someone comes over 2 months later, I think they go, huge. It's huge. Did you not notice that? Well, I don't know. I live with it every day. What are you talking about?
Right.
I'm out there every day, hunting. I don't notice that I'm changing my style. You know, I'm not. I don't know. I'm just trying to do what I do.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. So someday I'm just going to sit down with a case of beer and watch them all, I think.
Sounds like a great plan. You got a lot of footage. You're going to have to get a keg or something.
Well, yeah, it's. I think it's right around 15 hours a total. You know, it would be to watch the entire
Make a pretty good party.
6 videos. It would be, it'd be a long time
before you get to 10 DVDs. You're going to be making a week out
Well,
of it.
you know, it really wouldn't be that big of a, I mean, I work 15, 16-hour days constantly. So, I mean, sitting down to watch it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it's just, you know, I mean, time management. You know, like, I haven't even put pictures up from last year's season on our website. I just realized that not too long ago. I was like, you know, I didn't even put pictures up yet from last year's season on the website, you know? So it's like, because I do have a lot on my plate to, you know, constantly just juggling, like, what to get done right now, you know? Yeah, it's fun. I really do enjoy it.
It could be tough,
but it does get a little overwhelming when you can't get everything done that, you know, you need to get done. It gets a little overwhelming because, you know it needs to get done, and you don't have the time or whatever to do it.
I personally think, this is my opinion, but I personally think that the tone that you bring to the film that you do really does allow people to feel like they know you on some level. And I posted on our timeline on W2H, hey, we're interviewing Jared tomorrow. Anybody have any questions? And Jared's the man. You know, so it's like, holy cow, you know, people are really excited about what you do. And I honestly think that people are going to be forgiving to you if you're not producing. I mean, obviously you have deadlines and shows and things like that I'm sure you attend, but sure. The audience, I mean, man, including myself, obviously people love what you guys are doing. I think it's fantastic personally. I really, a big part of this show today, talking to you, is hearing you talk about how much you love hunting on the public land, and how difficult it really isn't for you if you just put in some work and effort and you just go do it. Aside from, was it South Dakota you said? You haven't made it out there yet, but... Yeah,
I haven't made it to South Dakota, and I mean, yeah, I've had ideas for South Dakota, and I will get there because it is a good state. To be honest with you, if they open the same time as North Dakota, 1st of September, or right around there, I'd probably do South Dakota over North Dakota right now. You know, I mean, it's a good state, but
that's cool.
No, really I mean, cool I do. Like, I mean, I absolutely love hunting public. I mean, since doing the videos, you know, I've had a lot of people that have offered, you know, probably the biggest place that I've been offered to hunt is 3,000 or 4,000 acres of private land in Kansas, and, you know, place where 200-inch deer, you know, get shot, maybe not every year, but they're there, you know, and it's like, that goes back to like that 2006 season that this was before, you know, this show started, that I was talking a little bit about that defining season, you know, and, you know, for me, hunting isn't so much about, you know, how big a buck I shoot, although I love chasing big bucks, don't get me wrong.
Right.
You know, yeah, not, you know, I mean,
just said something about your skill level, you know, and what it takes to get one. There's
right. I mean, right. I do love chasing big bucks, but I think, more important to me is how did I get this deer? How am I hunting? Because that's really what.
Are you still there, Jared? Might have lost you for a second there.
Oh, did you lose me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hello? Okay. I don't know. That's weird. Technology. I don't know where it cut out, but you gotta love cellular technology these days. 2013, you still got a phone that doesn't. Anyways.
Well, that kind of ties in. Go ahead, bud. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I've got, I get offers. I've gotten some great offers to hunt some really prime private land, and I've had, a lot of people that have been like, hey, I've watching 150 class. Biggest buck I've ever been offered to help a guy kill on public land is a 180 some inch 8-pointer. Wow. And I told him, you've put the work and you've put the effort in. I said, to be honest with you, if I just showed up and got it, I said, it wouldn't mean that much to me. It wouldn't, it'd be a big buck or whatever, but
that's not what it's about. That's
I didn't
awesome.
have to work it. I didn't have to work for it. And, now each person is their own. I got buddies that would probably think that's the, greatest thing ever. Yeah, I'll come do it. And they'd be jacked about it, and it would mean a lot to them. But for me, I just know, and that goes back to that 2006 season of defining, when I was kind of getting almost burnt out on hunting, really defining what makes me tick when it comes to hunting, and how I hunt and the way I hunt is so much more important than, how many bucks I shoot or how big a bucks. Even though, today the last 3 seasons have been the best seasons, and this season's shaping up to be the best one of them all. And, even though those have been my best seasons where I've been on the biggest deer, put that aside, how I hunt is, and where I hunt, like public land, and that free spirit and style of, you can go from place to place, all of that. And I think the lows, when you're, like in North Dakota, when you're not seeing anything or any of these, it doesn't matter where you're hunting, those lows that you have, when you do see a big one and you do get close or you do get one and you're back up on the high plane, that, having those lows is important. If you're always, being successful and every time you step out there, there is no failure left. I think, at least for myself, I can only speak for myself.
At that point, it's going to happen sometime, and I would just be so fearful, like, oh man, when's the season going to be when I'm not going to get one? It's going to happen. You got your last DV that you guys launched out, Calm Before the Storm. You had, I believe his name, is it Shay? That you called the hero?
Yeah, Shay. What's that?
You called him the hero. He was walking in every.
The hero, yeah. He just shows up, and and it's so bizarre because, not to take any credit away, because he's a killer. He gets it done.
Seems like an intense guy.
Big buckets in range. It's at least from what I've seen, it's in a lot of trouble. He doesn't waste any time, and he's very good at that. But like in Wisconsin, the last 2 seasons, the first day he's went out with me as the hunter, he's only been out and filmed me a couple times in Wisconsin. He's gotten one, and it's just, it's spots that I've found, and they're both the first time we've walked into them, but he's just lucky. But then you take my buddy Al, who's probably hunted 50, 60 days over the course of the last since 2007, and hasn't drawn his bow back on a big one yet. And, and that's why I kind of called him the hero. It's like, poor Al, my buddy Al, he's been, like last year, he went to North Dakota with me, and it was just devastating out there for us. We didn't have a good trip, and he's trudged around the woods with me in Wisconsin for day after day after day, and had not had his opportunity. And Shay shows up, and boom, boom, So that's why I kind of called him the hero. I was like, I got to bring him down to ground zero a little bit here, But he's still, I think partly. When you do screw up on big ones like I have quite a bit, it does humble you, and it does keep you, and I, if I didn't miss so many that I have over the past, 3-4 years. Would I be quite as humble as I think I maybe am now? Probably not. I'd probably, be a little bit harder on one of the other guys if they missed or whatever. Like, how could you do that? But now I kind of understand it a little bit more. How something like that can happen. But Shay, on the other hand, I mean, even though he's been very successful, he's also super humble about it. Even with this one that he got in North Dakota, I mean, he did a great job, but he's like, I'm sure my luck will run out here eventually. It can't go on like this forever, but right now it's pretty cool. I mean, so I mean, yeah, he gets it done. So
that one other, I guess to maybe sum it up, I suppose here, I got to say, I love chatting with you. It's seriously, the stories you have are, and to hear them coming from you personally as opposed to watching, I think is a whole different thing in itself.
Sure.
I'm learning a little bit here too. So thank you for that. But
yeah, no problem.
What do you, and you kind of went over this all along here in the last couple of minutes, but what do you classify as a successful hunt? I mean, when I ask that, I'm coming from the place of, it seems like there are some hunters that are, kill, get the rack, all that stuff. And I couldn't be more not like that. Not that I have anything against. Everyone's got their own heritage and tradition and upbringing into hunting that makes them like it and go out there. And for me, I just like the opportunities. I think in your last episode or show that you launched, the calm before the storm, you had a nice buck walk up to you and you had said, I think it was Shay that was filming you at the time. He said, you said he knew he was going to be mad at you because you passed up on it. But I think you had said in the film, like, I just want to appreciate nature sometimes. It's just great being out here. And that's really what draws me to what you guys do. And I think it's fantastic. So I'll let you answer the question. I'm sorry, I rambled on now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, to me, it's, I am always trying to, get footage of a big buck because, I mean, I want to put it in my video, but I also, what makes a hunt a great hunt to me, as far as, for the video, and everything is the ups and downs. And, that's why, for instance, if our car breaks down and we're on an out-of-state trip, I don't look at it like it's a big deal anymore. I'm like, you know what? Somebody, might do one trip every 5 years or at most maybe one a year or something, and if something like this happens, they could completely allow that to wreck their entire hunt. But, if they can just watch my video and be like, it's really not that big of a deal. We'll just quick fix it and get about, go on our way, I mean, and having those low points when things are going wrong is very important to me because it's realistic. And that's what really happens. I mean, if every time we went out there, we got the deer we stalked after and everything went according to plan and everything, my videos would be pretty boring.
Yeah, there'd be no story.
Right. Yeah, so I think, that is very important to me. It's not, what makes a successful hunt for me is not whether we get one or not. It's whether we get enough good content to, with highs and lows to build a good, relatable story that, people can be like, you know what, I can kind of relate to this. I've kind of been there, whether that's obviously I'm not intentionally missing, but, when I do miss, there's, chances are, there's quite a few hunters that have been there, and if they haven't, their time might be coming, you know what I mean? I mean, it does happen. It's hunting and, mistakes, decisions made in real time are never perfect. You can watch it, you can go back and watch it on video and be like, man, this feels like it's in slow motion compared to how it actually happened, and you can see all the mistakes that you made that you shouldn't have made. That's one good thing about video is it's really easy to see where you should have done something different. But, I mean, that's hunting. I mean, if, like I said, if it was all highs, every time I went out there and got one all the time, everyone I shot at and everything and everyone I stalked at, I'd probably I wouldn't be as connected to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I'd probably be like a little bit, it'd be too easy. That's why I love chasing whitetails and mature, or big bucks is because they are I was just thinking about this the other day. No species in the world is more effort probably put into hunting than the white-tailed deer, and yet we still, I mean, even guys that have highly managed 2,000 acres of land, highly managed, big bucks will go unkillable on those lands that they've watched them grow up. They've trail camped. They've been watching them all summer, and those deer still manage to put the slip even in those kinds of places sometimes.
When your heart gets pumping, it's really too. That's a whole other factor in itself. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many variables that make it exciting. It's definitely it's fun.
Yeah. Right, they're an elusive animal, and that's what I love about whitetail hunting. But yeah, just wanted to thank you too for I stumbled onto how we kind of got connected is I stumbled onto your Facebook page with Where to Hunt Wisconsin, and I thought that was cool because there was Wisconsin, people are losing their places to hunt. I just intentionally kind of walked away from where I had, good opportunity to hunt a couple places and took up public land hunting. But a lot of people, they've maybe hunted a place for 20 years and they lost where to hunt, and they're almost like, they're discouraged and what do I do now? And I think it's great what you're doing because it shows, Wisconsin's got, you probably know this a little bit more than me, but I know there's over 1 million acres of public lands out there in Wisconsin. I can't remember the exact, if it's like 1.2 million acres or something like that. But, what you're doing there is a great thing because public land, more and more people, there needs to be more opportunities. And I do like what a lot of the states are starting to, lease land from private landowners and develop more government programs that, private landowners can enroll their land in and which will open it up for public. And I think that's really important for the future because otherwise we'll end up like Europe, where,
exactly. Yes. Thank you. It's a privilege to have access. Yeah.
Right. It is, and, it'd completely change hunting for me if there was public land, if I couldn't hunt public land anymore because it wasn't available, I'd be just heartbroken, honestly. I'd have places to hunt because, people have thrown a lot of offers out there for me, but it wouldn't be the same anymore. And so, I really like what you're doing. I know you're nonprofit with it and everything, and you're just doing it for you want to see other people, successful, and you want to see other people have a place to hunt, and you're doing it to help people out, and I think that's great. So
that's it. Really, and that's one of the big reasons I want to have you on is just to, spark that. You guys obviously really get people excited about getting out there after watching your shows, and I want to have people hear what you have to say about it and know that it is difficult at times, but you got to have the ambition and the motivation. You got to get that renewed spirit to say, I love public hunting. Think about it for 2 seconds. What if that wasn't there? When people complain about, I don't see any deer, there's too many hunters, it's not safe. We have one of the safest states in the country when it comes to hunting, period. And we have plenty of land, like you said, and you're right, it's right. It's a lot. Right. And not to mention programs and incentives and things like that, but I just want to make sure that people are able to stay excited about it. I don't want to see it ever go away, and connecting people, someone loses their, like you said, their honey hole or whatever it is, and how do I get back in? Well, no one ever talks to each other. Everyone's so worried about protecting their spot, and that's fine. I'm not trying to, exploit exactly your precise GPS coordinates or anything, but like you said, you got to move around. It's just, you should hunt for that day. And I really like that you said that, and I think that goes a long way in the way that, I could learn a lot from that statement personally.
Sure.
And I think other people can too, but.
And I look back and how many times I've made that mistake and, hunkered down in a spot that was good at one time. But, it's just another thing that I learned along the way, and there's still so much more to be learned. But I liked one point that you brought up a little bit there just a minute ago about how, it's all how you look at it. You look at public land hunting like from the attitude and mindset of, well, that's all I got to hunt is public land. Well, you're probably not going to get great results because you're not going to look at all the positives of hunting public land. But if you start to look at it like, I chose to walk away from private land in central Buffalo County to, good land to hunt public land. And I'd never go back. I mean, the opportunity is awesome on public land. It's just developing your style and getting it, learning a new way and a new style, how to go about it, but looking at it from the positive aspect of, wow, there's tons of acreage and I can hunt a new piece, a new territory. And, I never look at it.
There's so much to learn. I love it. I love learning. I really do. And there's always something to learn when you're looking at these pull up maps and try. It's fun.
Right, and you don't always. Years ago I used to think, I need to know every detail about this place before I get a deer on it. Well, now, I mean, there's been a lot of times where we've walked into a piece, never been there before, and gotten one. You don't need to always know everything about it to have it come to life and work for you. So, and that's what I love about public land is, I can bounce around from piece to piece. And, now over the course of, quite a few years of doing it, I don't feel like I got to really know anything about this piece too much, before I go in there. I'll just get in there and see how it is and kind of go with feel,
And I think I think that some people might be skeptical of that statement until they watch what you do, and then they'll go, "Holy crap!" And I think that statement goes a long way for our my audience per se, and obviously yours as well. Anyone that says, you can't just walk in and get a big buck. Well, I guess you can. You've done it, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, I'm sure that's not the way it goes every time, but
no, it isn't. And I mean, I think the only reason I think people would be skeptical of that is because, over the course of the last 30 years, the information we read about is usually geared towards patterning whitetails. Well, as I kind of discussed, if whitetails were as patternable as we want to think they are, or we want them to be, they really aren't that patternable, because if they were, we wouldn't be so hooked on whitetails, because it'd be too easy, if they were that patternable.
It really is addicting.
Talk a little bit about all the effort that goes into hunting whitetails, and even highly managed places, like I was saying, deer do go unkillable on those places. So, I mean, they aren't as patternable, and that's why, you don't need to know everything about a piece when you're going into it, because I haven't found where there is some pattern to them, of course, because there is to some degree, but they're not to a T usually. Very rarely.
Yeah, they're very self-preservation, right? They're
right. So,
very
but
cool.
But yeah. Anyways, well, thanks a lot for doing this and having me on. I mean, I've had a few interviews. I really like that you're involved with the public land aspect of everything with what you're doing, and so it kind of goes hand in hand. And just thanks for having me.
You really are a humble guy. I really appreciate it, Jared.
No
I should be thanking you. I'm thanking you, and again, thank you for taking time out of your day to be on our show. And I'm sure the audience will really love to hear what you had to say today. So, good luck out there, man. Are you getting back out?
Hey, yeah. What's that now?
Are you getting back out soon?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to film a buddy tonight here in Wisconsin, and then I'm going to do a hunt this weekend in Wisconsin. It's going to be like a 2-day, just a weekend deal with another buddy that we're actually going to use a boat, and we're going to kind of do a boat hunt. I want to do a little bit more of that kind of stuff in the future. It's, it intrigues me,
If you make it to the eastern part of the state, I got a canoe and some nice river public land areas out here. So if you're out this way and you need some stuff or an extra camera, whatever, I got some goods. Give me a jingle.
Yeah, eastern part of the state isn't an area that I've chased whitetails around in actually at all. There's definitely some good areas and pockets that I've kind of looked at a little bit, but just haven't gotten there. That's what I was talking about. I'll probably never get to all the places that I want to hunt, because there's public land everywhere. So, but no, thank you again for offering, and well, good luck this fall.
Thank you.
Don't miss as many as I did last year. So.
Hopefully I get the opportunities. That's the best part. Yeah. But we'll catch you later.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Eric.
All right, no problem. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
So again, just want to give a big thank you to Jared from Whitetail Adrenaline. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Lots of good stuff in that interview. And one of the things that Jared and I had talked about a little bit before the show was scent control, and kind of one of the turning points he had, which he briefly mentioned here in the interview as well. He had given me the story that, he was working on his car and he was full of tranny fluid, and, it was just one of those days where he still wanted to get out in the woods. So he did. He just went out there, not worrying about his scent or anything like that. And he ended up having a great success that particular day. And that just brings me to one of the things that, I him and haw over as a hunter, whether it be on public or private land. But scent control, really, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't practice it as much as it could be. I don't have the carbon clothing, and I do have some of the sprays, and I don't know if it works, honestly. I have no way to know how well it does work. Obviously, wind is going to be a big part of that, and you want to make sure you're in the right direction in terms of wind goes. But one thing I wanted to share was a share on our timeline, the W2H timeline, from John Hafner on September 22nd. He had shared, I'm going to quote him here, and here we go. So John, quote, got in my stand around 2 p.m. today, lit a cig around 3:30, looked to my right when I put in my lighter in my pocket, and this buck was 8 yards away looking at me. Reached for my bow, pulled back, and drilled it. Didn't seem to care that first buck with the bow. So the buck didn't care, end quote, sorry. He had a cig in his mouth, and the buck came by. And that similar situation happened last year when I had introduced a buddy to gun hunting. And gun hunting is different, obviously, because you can really get the range. But the range he got the deer with his gun, it was close enough that it would have been a scent issue. My buddy had gone to the bathroom on number 2, not too far from his stand. I'm pretty sure he was dipping, and he may have been smoking. Not 100% on that one, but deer didn't seem to care that he had made a number 2 right by his stand and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of products on the market, and things like scent lock, the clothing, the carbon clothing, and the carbon seems to really hold in the scents and prevent that from getting beyond your clothing. And apparently you can recharge it if you put it in the dryer. It'll release the scents that it's captured, and then it'll be ready for use again. So other things like nose jammer, and I know what's this other product here? I forget. I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, guys. B-Tech, Scent Killer by Wildlife Research Center. That's actually the one that I use before I hunt. I'll spray my clothes on with that to let it sit outside for a couple days. And again, who knows? You can get the deodorants, you can get the shampoos, you can get the soap, you can get the clothing, the sprays that smell like leaf. You can put your clothes in a bag of leaves for the whole year and forget all the products. But really, it seems to be a mix-up between, do the deer, A, care if they smell you? And I would assume yes, to some level. And B, do the products out there actually work, or is it a big scam? And there's some sort of debate that exists here, and I'm just kind of curious to see what people out there think. So if you're listening to the show, I'm going to post up a spot on our blog site, which is wherethebuckisit.com. And hopefully maybe some people can kind of jump on that. And otherwise, the Facebook page is fine. Everyone uses that more than anything else anyways across the platform of the internet. So feel free. But honestly, it was a great show today. Happy to have had Jared on the show. That was obviously the bigger piece that took up quite a bit of the time, which is great. I'm happy it did. I'm really happy that we got to talk with him. And I feel, like always with their show, I get really jacked up and really excited to get back out there in the off season. It's great to feel that energy. So hopefully they were able to do some of that for you today on the show as well, and get you excited about public land hunting and give you a shot of adrenaline, so to speak. I know that I'm always excited about public hunting. Personally, I love exploring and learning new land, looking at maps, reading, the topography out there, and trying to understand the flow of deer. And it never actually ever seems to fully work out, but it doesn't mean it's not a fun process. And just getting out there and enjoying, the land that we have access to. It's amazing. So that said, you guys have a great day, and go hunt public.